Hello and welcome to another episode of the GDL podcast. Uh, it's me, your boy Ahmed, and today hopefully we're going to be talking about the latest Switch model, the state of play with from PlayStation, and kind of like some of the latest goings on with regards to like the dev side of things. But with me today, a man who needs no introduction, Mr. Chris Payne.
Hello, happy to be here.
Good to have you again, man. It's always a pleasure to chat with you.
So, are we doing Switch first or
Yeah,
PlayStation?
let's go Switch. Let's go Switch. It's the freshest piece of news. It kind of also came out of absolutely nowhere.
It
Um,
did. That was a surprise.
yeah. So like, if you've not heard, like the Nintendo have announced the Switch OLED model. That is literally the name that they're marketing it with. Um, which is like interesting at first, considering that usually like they would have some sort of like prefix or suffix like like for example the Game Boy Advance, same system, just kind of different mode, like between like the normal Advance and the Game Boy Advance SP, because it had like that's two halves sort of thing, and even with other DS consoles. So it's interesting to see them just kind of just call it what it is. Literally just like it's Switch OLED because it's got
Yeah,
OLED screen.
it's crystal clear, and I think they're probably banking on OLED still being a kind of new and sexy technology.
Yeah, that's definitely because like I mean it's it's hard to call it new and sexy technology when it's kind of just standard in most phones nowadays. It's just like
Oh, on phones, yeah,
yeah. And like
yeah.
yeah, just like it's just super popular with like mobile technology, and it's I mean like it's especially like fancy when it comes to like TVs and stuff, because you still
Mhm.
get a lot of TVs that like don't like OLED is like the premium that you pay for with TVs. But yeah, it's interesting that they've kind of like it's interesting that they've gone down that route to kind of like what do you call it, like get up to speed with like other mobile technologies.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that they're competing with mobile phones particularly because that they have a quite a unique form factor.
Yes.
So it's definitely Switch is definitely better for playing games on than a phone, um, just by
Oh yeah.
virtue of having proper controllers. Um,
Yeah, no, I do personally agree with you. I feel like there would be some people who would disagree because like the mobile market is kind of I don't know. It like there are a lot of people who've like started like who play games on mobile phones that
mhm.
don't really fancy the appeal in more traditional like console games that you would on a Nintendo console.
I guess so. I mean, it depends. The difficulty with mobile, I think, is although obviously mobile gaming is a solid 50% of the games market at the moment, but
Mm,
it's a very different market. It's a very different experience. So where the PC and console market is people who will invest in a dedicated piece of hardware specifically for playing games, or a high-end PC that is good for playing games, um, and they're into games for the sake of games. They enjoy that particular experience, and
yeah.
they're looking for new game experiences. So that half of the market is an audience that is hungry for content,
Mm,
and has invested into equipment for because it's their hobby.
yeah.
Whereas the mobile market, although it's vastly bigger numerically, um, most of those people are just trying to kill time at the bus stop, um,
Yeah.
or they're just sort of like they're a little bit bored with what's on TV, and so they're playing Candy Crush or something.
Mm,
These
yeah.
those players, which are sometimes dismissed as casual players, um, they are less invested in like a high quality games experience. They just want to be entertained for 5 minutes, and so on. And they're willing
Yeah.
to sort of like spend small amounts of money to be entertained for 5 minutes and sort of like buy some like lollipops for Candy Crush and you know, and do that sort of thing, which is why microtransactions work, because like that sector of the market is not interested in shelling out 350 quid on a piece of hardware specifically for playing games on. So, but I'd say I think the Switch OLED is going to be a great entry point for people who hadn't got a Switch yet.
Yeah.
I think its value as an upgrade is a bit more questionable, I think.
I agree. I mean, because I mean, so like a general outline of the new features is that the screens that the OLED screen, it's a little bit bigger. Like they've improved the sound quality a bit. The dock has improved. Like it's got a fixed LAN connection, so you can like
That's
rather
good.
than it's something that definitely caters more towards like the fixed like seated actually like sitting down and playing a game sort of thing. Because having that fixed internet connection is a lot better than just having to rely on Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Especially with games like Splatoon, where like you're always online and you need that stable connection, or even Monster Hunter, like the latest one, you need that stable connection. And so, I feel like in certain situations that just have it, the fact that it has a LAN connection, if it wasn't for the fact that it's like it's $350, so they've not announced
yeah.
the UK price. No, it's
My
fine.
mistake.
No. But like they've not because they've not announced the UK price. It'll be like around that like 300 to 325. If they go full 350, that'd be interesting. But it does cater more towards like but well, a bit both to like being like those who choose to play the Switch handheld, but also like the improvements to the dock if you prefer it docked. Which is interesting because like the previous Switch iteration, they literally just called it the Switch Lite, um, and it is very much just a handheld console. Like there
Yeah.
is no dock,
Yeah.
there's no dock involved. It's just it's just yeah, you can't even like swap out the Joy Cons.
Yeah, well,
It's all
that's
fixed.
an interesting one actually with the Switch Lite, because it means that it limits the amount of two-player
Yeah,
stuff that you can do. But I think that there is an implicit assumption that it is cut down, and it's great if you just that's one of the cuts they've had to make to get the price down.
yeah,
And I think that they've because if people wanted to play it multiplayer with their friends, sort of like the standard Switch does that for them. So
yeah,
what they were trying to do with the Switch Lite was sort of like capture the part of the market who are basically solo players or online only players, and didn't they wanted a cheaper option, and I think that the Lite is pretty good for that if you like handheld gaming.
absolutely.
So if all your friends have got Switches and you were feeling left out and you couldn't afford the standard Switch, then I think the Lite is a great option, because you can take it, you can meet up with your friends somewhere, or at least you could if it wasn't a pandemic, and
Yeah.
you can play. But Bluetooth works over 2 meters, so that's
It's
it's
true,
fine.
exactly. They can be socially
Um,
distanced. Could
um,
you can have telescopic vision as well if you're gonna share the same screen.
oh god, yeah.
Like,
Well, this is the thing, is that if you wanted to join in with your friends, and you've got your own screen and your own controllers, rather than trying to sort of like play on your mate's like detached controller,
yeah,
having your own screen is good, and being able to practice at home and stuff like that. It's a different experience. But I think Nintendo are really have done really well to capture that sort of kind of like portable handheld gaming market. I've never
yeah,
really been into handheld gaming very much, because I don't find that it's a very good experience looking down at something in my hand. It makes my neck ache. I can't play games on my phone for long periods.
yeah,
And yeah, and it's a small screen, and because I am I'm a gamer and I've invested in consoles and a big screen. I want to see games on my big screen.
Yeah.
But there are people who only play games socially with their friends, and so they want to be able to do that down the pub or
Mm.
while they're traveling or stuff like that. And I did find that I started using my Switch on the train while I was traveling, and it was great, really good,
Yeah.
and a lot easier than sort of like trying to get out a laptop on the train.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
so
No, I definitely agree. I've actually started to see people actually playing their Switches on trains now. Um, not like just not recently,
no,
like 'cause the coronavirus, but generally, like it's not it's an uncommon but not a rare occurrence. I sometimes I wouldn't be surprised to see people
yeah,
if they have do have their Switch out and like they're playing on the train. Um, but I mean, it's funny you say that because like I for most of my life, even though I've always had like a home console, I've also always had like a handheld, like just kind of to play portably in like situate. So like for example, if my mom's watching the soap opera sort of thing, I can't really like I couldn't go down and play on the GameCube, so I played
yeah,
on on the Game Boy Advance. Um, and so that's kind of like sat with me, but I've never felt an affinity to mobile gaming. Funny enough, I've always been like handheld consoles are my experience, and
yeah,
I didn't see the appeal in like mobile games because, like you said, most of their market base isn't most of their like player base aren't people who are like getting a phone to play games. They're getting a
yeah,
phone to like call, browse the internet, and like all that jazz, and communicate fundamentally.
yeah.
But yeah,
And actually, one last interesting thing about
mm,
the Switch OLED is the design of it. I actually really like the slightly sort of like off-white um, color and presentation. It looks uh, a bit more sophisticated,
yeah,
and I think that ties in with the whole sort of like marketing it as an OLED thing. It's for people who want sort of like a high quality experience and willing to pay for it. So it's presented as a kind of like sophisticated, high quality thing rather than the brightly coloured sort of like this is for kids presentation.
I'll tell you what. I feel like they've tried to imitate. I feel like it's tried to imitate the PS5, like the white on the black.